What's going on, everybody? So, recently I made the top 10 racing games for the ROG Ally. But as of late, I started to notice not a lot of people talking about a specific genre. And it's a genre that I've been looking up to since I was a kid. And that is the fighting game genre. So here are the top 10 fighting games for the ROG Ally. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm pretty devastated right now. I recorded this video before, but for some reason, the recording just deleted. So here I am re-recording this video. But without further ado, number 10 is a game that changed and sort of revived and refreshed the fighting game industry. Since the first Guilty Gear that I played when I was a kid came out, I will never forget the arcade mode and fighting Judgment for the first time. It took me 6 hours to finally give up, because that boss required all of your skills and knowledge for that game. And with Guilty Gear Strive coming out fairly recently, a lot of handheld enthusiasts wondered if Guilty Gear Strive can work on the Nintendo Switch. But the game never came out, so a lot of people were looking to Alienware, Asus, MSI, and of course the Steam Deck to play Guilty Gear Strive. And I can confidently say that Guilty Gear Strive, with any power saving setting on the ROG Ally, runs at a perfect 60 FPS. But depending on the resolution, from 720p to 1080p, you might have to boost it up to performance mode to get that extra juice to play properly. And Guilty Gear Strive sets the boundaries for a fighting game and then surpasses them easily. With its storyline, character roster, it brings back the Guilty Gear magic that we experienced when we were kids. And the first time I picked up Guilty Gear Strive and played it on the ROG Ally, I just couldn't believe how great it played and how awesome the game looked. This is definitely one of the most impressive fighting games on the handheld, and you need to check it out if you haven't already. Guilty Gear started something special. It started one of the most fast-paced fighting games in the genre, industry, and community. Guilty Gear set a standard, and Strive surpasses it. I guess that's why it's called Strive. And going on through the list, number 9 is a game that I've been playing again since I was a kid. Since I got the first Game Boy white and gray fat version. I absolutely loved playing Killer Instinct on the Game Boy. And with the new Killer Instinct that was an Xbox Arcade exclusive on the Xbox One, this game showed me exactly why I always loved the Killer Instinct series. And playing Killer Instinct on the ROG Ally is an absolute treat. With any power saving setting, you'll be able to reach 60 FPS and sometimes even higher. At 1080p, Killer Instinct looks magical on the ROG Ally. This game truly surpasses any expectation I had for Killer Instinct when it was first announced for the Xbox One, and the Steam version is no exception. This game will have you thinking that you're an expert in the first 2 hours. It is an extremely noob-friendly title that you can just pick up with a couple friends and pull off super and ultra combos in your first hour or two, or even less than that. Killer Instinct is an exceptional title that I see as being one of the best modern fighting games that you can pick up on Steam. And with the ROG Ally, it'll last you around 3 to even 5 hours depending on what setting and power saver mode you have enabled on your ROG Ally. But playing it in 1080p is an absolute wonderful time. And if you haven't played Killer Instinct already, I highly recommend checking this game out. It has a killer roster with killer combos and killer gameplay. All puns intended. And number 8 is a title that had some controversy with it. When Street Fighter V first came out, a lot of people didn't like it. And then it started progressing and Capcom was adding more DLC to the game and people liked it even less. And then they put the general story in there and people straight up just hated the game. But after picking up Street Fighter V Championship Edition, with all of those controversial DLCs and add-ons put together into one package, one affordable package, Street Fighter V Championship Edition is one of the best fighting games I've ever played on the ROG Ally. It looks sharp, crisp, vibrant. It plays perfectly on the handheld at 1080p in performance mode, and it lasted me about 2 hours to even 3 hours depending on what resolution I set it to. Now, Street Fighter V came out around the time Capcom downgraded to Crapcom. So there are a lot of questionable features in this title, but in retrospect, with the entire package, this game is an undeniable unbelievable, addictive, and appealing roller coaster. Its storyline is akin to playing a Street Fighter movie. There's countless costumes for each character. There are so many characters in this game. I believe there are more characters in Street Fighter V than any other Street Fighter game. Capcom just kept adding on to Street Fighter V until it was perfected and until it was enough. And in my opinion, Street Fighter V is enough, especially for the ROG Ally. Now, with the ROG Ally's extra power to boot, Street Fighter V plays a lot better on that than the Steam Deck, in my opinion and experience. And with the 1080p screen, its amazing graphics look even more incredible. I can't recommend Street Fighter V enough, especially Championship Edition. Do not get the original Street Fighter V for the ROG Ally. It is not very good. But with the upgraded combat, costume, story, and just overall gameplay and balancing, Street Fighter V Championship Edition has proven over time to be one of the best fighting games I could play on a portable device. It looks incredible. It gets everybody's attention when you play this title. And it runs exceptionally well on the handheld. Now, moving on to number 7, and being a little more enthusiastic towards the list, may I add. This was one of my personal favorites, and it's a game that I continue to go to till today. I literally just played this game before recording, and that game is Street Fighter X Tekken, or Street Fighter Cross Tekken. This was a title that was being hyped up for years and years. Everybody was waiting for a Street Fighter Cross Tekken game to release. We were just waiting on our hands and feet and asking the gods at Capcom and Namco to just release this title, please. And high and behold, Street Fighter Cross Tekken came out. And with its insane rock-themed intro and its absolutely unbelievable roster of fighters, this game has 50 plus fighters in it, including Mega Man, and even Pac-Man is in this game. You can straight munch other fighters if you wanted to. You can fully customize each character. There are countless costumes in total for every single character, and this game even has some kind of storyline to it and gameplay twist. Every time you go against someone in the story, they activate the Dark Crystal and get some kind of evil one-up for a certain amount of time. Now, in terms of features, I would say Tekken games have a lot more features than Street Fighter X Tekken, but Street Fighter X Tekken has a lot more characters than any other fighting game you'll probably ever play. And I believe there were 16 included DLC characters in the Steam version. But yes, Street Fighter X Tekken was one of the games I was trying desperately to get to play on the Steam Deck. I finally did, but on the ROG Ally, it just plays, and it plays so well. With any power saving setting on the ROG Ally, you'll be able to play Street Fighter X Tekken at 1080p with 60 FPS happily. And this game has just been my daily ritual since I got my ROG Ally. It was one of the first games I tried on it because I used to play Street Fighter X Tekken, and I still call it Street Fighter X Tekken and not Cross Tekken. But I played it on the PS Vita, and I used to play local multiplayer, and I absolutely loved it, but I always wanted more resolution for this title. It looked exceptionally well with the PS Vita's OLED screen, and on the Steam Deck, the screen was bigger, so it gave me more of a better experience with the Steam Deck. But on the ROG Ally, it has a bigger screen, of course, than the PS Vita, and it's 1080p. So you can imagine how ecstatic I was to play this game for the first time on a 1080p handheld with this kind of power backing it up. And you can get around 3 to even 5 hours on the ROG Ally with Street Fighter X Tekken. I'm not sure if you would even want to play this game for 5 hours, but you can, and you have that option. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Street Fighter Cross Tekken by now, please give it a try. Now, number 6 is a modern fighting game defining title that I've been going back to every once in a while because it simply looks perfect. And that game is Injustice 2. Injustice 1 redefined fighting games and was pretty much a Mortal Kombat game with DC characters. And in Injustice 2, it brings that level to even more insane heights. I mean, you got Superman tossing somebody into an airplane, Omni-Man style, in a strictly DC title. Injustice 2 has the best storyline of any fighting game I've ever played in my entire life. Everything is perfect, from the voice acting to the motion capture and character design, but the story itself is something you could find in a DC comic. I mean, the fact that this story wasn't exactly in a DC comic, I can tell makes some comic book fans very jealous, because the execution of the storyline in this game is akin to some of the best DC movies out there. Now, I know I'm talking about the storyline a lot, but this game also plays exceptionally well on the ROG Ally. A game like Injustice 2 needs a powerhouse like the ROG Ally, and it plays it at a perfect 60 FPS at 1080p. Now, there are certain stages that do require more power, and that's when you want to put the game in performance mode. And I know you are asking the question, why do you have Injustice 2 at number 6? Well, this game only lasts about an hour and a half to 2 hours, so it's not the most optimal fighting game you could play on the ROG Ally, but it is one of the most impressive looking titles, period, that you can play on the handheld. I remember when Injustice 1 came out for the PS Vita, and I was playing that in the subway, and someone just randomly talked to me and said, wow, just seeing how far video games have come just blows my mind. I can't believe you can play something like this on a handheld that small. And this was about a 60-year-old man. There are people out there that are still looking at the hardware and software advancements of video games, and they cannot truly believe their eyes. But at this point, while playing Injustice 2 in the subway, people just look at it and they just can't stop looking at it. It's something that not only blows people's minds away, but it shatters expectations on what a handheld can play. And Injustice 2 is one of those titles that you will experience on the ROG Ally that will really make you go, wow, this is actually where we are in terms of hardware advancements. Video games have come such a long way. And of course, if you haven't checked out Injustice 2 by now, I don't know what to tell you. Just pick up the game and be amazed at all the hard work those developers put into just the motion capture. You can tell they put a lot of work into that by just the fact that they zoom into the faces so hard during each cutscene. Into Bruce Wayne's face, Black Canary's face especially has the most expression on it. But I absolutely love this fighting game, and I'll never forget it till the day I die. It looks incredible, plays incredible, and I just can't believe a game like this exists and you can actually play it on a handheld like the Ally. And number 5 stems from the most legendary and classic fighting game in the industry, and that is King of Fighters 15. I remember playing King of Fighters 12 when I was 12, and just thinking to myself, wow, these HD graphics look so amazing. And I couldn't believe how precise and masterful the gameplay of King of Fighters is. I have every single King of Fighters game in my ROG Ally now, including King of Fighters 15. And for some reason, this game just plays perfect. I put it in silent mode, 1080p, and it plays at 60 FPS. And that gives you about 2 to 3 hours of gameplay. You can set the TDP to even lower to get even more battery life out of this title, but then you won't get exactly 60 FPS and the gameplay will be slightly choppy. But at 1080p, King of Fighters 15 is a magical fighting game, and it brings you all the way back to the fighting game industry's roots, with all these classic characters like Terry Bogard, Mai Murasaki, and just hearing Burn Knuckle or any of these other iconic moves that Terry Bogard pulls off will just teleport you all the way back into the past with these incredible modern graphics that King of Fighters 15 has. And not only that, King of Fighters 15 has an insanely huge roster. But I do believe that, with all the respect in the world, King of Fighters 15 is better than a lot of these titles I named on the list. But sadly, a lot of people just don't know about King of Fighters. And probably most of the people that are watching this video didn't know that King of Fighters 15 came out. But it did, and it is one of the most exceptional fighting games. It is so well balanced, and just, in my opinion, a perfect fighting game that you need to pick up on the ROG Ally exclusively because it just looks incredible and it plays perfect. But if you haven't checked out King of Fighters 15 by now, give it a shot. I promise you that you'll fall in love with this title, its storyline, gameplay, and you'll come to appreciate the King of Fighters series in all the numerous shapes and forms that it has presented to this genre and community. And number 4 has to be none other than Ultra Street Fighter 4. When Street Fighter 4 was released, it was equivalent to an earthquake that rocked the entire fighting game industry and woke up something incredible. Before Street Fighter 4, everybody kind of forgot about fighting games. They started playing games like Halo, SOCOM. All these first-person shooters started to rise up and take the spotlight. So fighting games naturally just took a back seat for a while. And then Street Fighter 4 came out. All of my friends were hyped up for it. I remember playing it all night, day one, with a big group of people. And it was one of the best memories I've ever had with any fighting game, let alone any game. No matter where you look, there will be respect for Street Fighter 4. It brings people together. It makes you see past the drama. Street Fighter 4 is one of the best fighting games and the most respectable game on this list. Now, it might not be the most modern title, so you will get a lot of battery life on the ROG Ally, and at 1080p, Street Fighter 4 looks better than it ever did on the handheld. And of course, naturally, this game does play at 60 FPS, even if you are in silent mode. And I remember having a lot of trouble with Street Fighter 4 on the Steam Deck. For some reason, the cutscenes just wouldn't work, and I would need to put the Steam Deck in desktop mode in order to hear the game. And in gaming mode, for some reason, a lot of the features just didn't work. This game was just a pain in the butt, and I actually gave up trying to play Street Fighter 4 on Steam Deck. But luckily, the ROG Ally came out, and I was able to play Street Fighter 4 flawlessly with zero effort. And playing Street Fighter 4 on the ROG Ally does bring me back to the good old days, and I play that game for hours on end. Now, of course, it's not as modern as these other titles on the list, so there will be times where you just get tired of playing Street Fighter 4's 2D side-scrolling fighting game mechanics, and you probably want to move on to something like Street Fighter 5 and 6. But try to play Street Fighter 4 with your friends at least one time, and you'll realize that Street Fighter 4 is a better fighting game than a lot of other Street Fighter games. It just had so much more thought put into it and a lot more balance. Now, of course, there are the occasional broken characters like Jury and Balrog, but just be patient with this fighting game and you will end up having the best time with it. And number 3 is a game that I never thought would surpass Mortal Kombat X. MK10 was one of the best Mortal Kombat games that I've ever played in my entire life. It's fast-paced, has an insane fighters roster, and it even has one of the best storylines of all time for any fighting game since Mortal Kombat 9. But Mortal Kombat 11 gives you everything that Mortal Kombat 10 did, and it actually multiplies it by 11. Mortal Kombat 11 is a game that provided me with a chance, an opportunity to play another fighting game besides Soul Calibur 2 with one of my favorite superheroes of all time since I was actually 3 years old. And yes, what am I doing as a 3-year-old? Reading and watching Spawn comics. But Mortal Kombat 11 actually provides you with a storyline, customizability, and some of the best gameplay you'll ever get with the Spawn character in a fighting game. And on the ROG Ally, Mortal Kombat 11 plays so freaking well. I'm surprised it can perform at 1080p 60 FPS in certain instances in silent mode. And of course, performance mode is the most recommended for this title, but you can actually play this game in silent mode and it works very well. Now, of course, you have to set the resolution to 720p, but beyond that, playing Mortal Kombat 11 on the ROG Ally is just something to behold when you're in the middle of it. I spent about 40 hours exclusively playing Mortal Kombat 11 on my ROG Ally with friends. The gameplay of Mortal Kombat 11 is among the best. The graphics are among the best in any fighting game. And there are even 2 storylines, including the DLC, in this fighting game. And Mortal Kombat 11's storyline goes beyond expectation. It's basically better than any Mortal Kombat movie and game before it. And if you haven't checked out Mortal Kombat 11, you have to at least try it on the ROG Ally, just for a few hours. Because not only does Mortal Kombat 11 have Spawn in it, which is just enough for me, it has RoboCop and freaking Rambo in its roster as well. To any 90s kid that grew up with all of these awesome action movies like Rambo, Terminator, RoboCop, and even Spawn, MK11 is a love letter to those fans, almost specifically. So not only is this one of the most modern titles on this list, but this is one of my favorite fighting games of all time, simply because of its roster alone. But it has so much more to offer than just the fighters in this fighting game. And that just makes Mortal Kombat 11 one of the greatest of all time in the genre. And now you're probably asking yourself, if Mortal Kombat 11 was number 3, what in the hell is number 2? And I'm sorry I gotta do this to you, but Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is number 2. It takes my heart when it comes to nostalgia, gameplay, and even those little flashes of story at the end of the credits are better than anything I've ever seen in any fighting game. But besides that, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3's gameplay is actually the best gameplay in any fighting game. There are 3 characters just like with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is actually the best fighting game in history, and it builds on that with even more depth-defying characters like Virgil, Dante, Wolverine, Iron Man, and even Chris Redfield is in this game. You got Steroids McGee himself pulling out all his guns, fighting Nemesis or Wolverine in the same fighting game. Till this day, I still can't believe the kind of fighters Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 has in it. I still look at this game and I just can't believe it ever existed. Its roster alone is something that I can't even describe. And I'm not sure how Capcom and Marvel were even able to afford all these characters in one game. But that comes to show you when 2 companies collide and work together, they can do pretty much anything. And Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is the result of that teamwork. And it has the best teamwork fighting game gameplay in any fighting game in history. The action is so smooth, you would want every single fighting game to have this co-op system. And since Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I've honestly wanted every single game to have a tag team system like that. And of course, 100% because of nostalgia, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is number 2. And it plays exceptionally well on the ROG Ally at 1080p 60 FPS with pretty much any power saver mode. And before we get up to number 1, I'd like to have at least one honorable mention, and that is Street Fighter 6. The only reason Street Fighter 6 wasn't on this list is because it's just not finished yet. There's still a lot of changes and add-ons that Capcom is including with Street Fighter 6. It's just beginning. But honestly, instead of Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 6 should have been on this list as number 8. But again, it's just too new. It just came out. We gotta give it some time to settle. More than anything, fighting games are so much more different after they settled and after they've had their gameplay and balance changed up a bit. But without further ado, and last but not least, number 1 is Tekken 7. Tekken 7 is an absolute blast to play, especially on the ROG Ally. Somehow, I was able to play this game in silent mode, 1080p, 60 FPS, and it is actually magical. Tekken 7 includes so much into it. Not only do you have one mainline story for Tekken 7, but it includes every single cutscene from all the past games in its gallery. Out of any fighting game gallery and collectibles that I've seen, Tekken 7 has impressed me the most. But not only that, this title has bowling and just the sheer additions added to this title, and the roster alone makes it one of the biggest fighting games that you can play on a handheld, period. But to top that all off, Tekken 7 definitely has the best gameplay of any fighting game on this list. It is without a doubt the best fighting game that I have and played on the ROG Ally. And anybody will tell you, Tekken 7 is just a masterpiece. It is everything that every Tekken fan has ever wanted. And I remember when I had the original PlayStation 1, Tekken 3 was a game I just could not put down. Just holding the game, you can feel the history and just masterwork in it. And Tekken 7 is no different. You can feel all of the energy, heart, and soul that the developers put into it. I remember when the Steam Deck first came out, the developer of Tekken 7 actually tested out his game on the handheld and gave us a thumbs up. Out of any developer for any fighting game, the developers for Tekken 7 are among the most passionate, and it's easy to see within seconds of playing Tekken 7 on ROG Ally or any other console or platform that it is a true masterpiece. And for respect to it, nostalgia for the series, and just additions that it includes in its overall package, Tekken 7 is just the jack of all trades and master of everything. Now, of course, it doesn't hold as much nostalgia as these other games on the list, but I do respect Tekken 7 more. And if you haven't checked out Tekken 7 by now, I don't believe you. I think you're just trying to get attention, because this game is an absolute masterclass in the fighting game genre. But yeah, that was the top 10 fighting games for the ROG Ally. And if there are any other fighting games that you hold dear and you thought should have been on this list, let me know in the comments below. I put my heart and soul into this list, and I expect you to do the same. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a good one. Later.